Hello friends, my name is Whitley and welcome to another round of my TBR game, LucidiTBR. This is a TBR game where I play as a dreamer, fighting against nightmares while also trying not to become one. I am going to roll some dice, and each die that I roll is going to add another dream to my dreamer board and therefore another book to my TBR. There are 4 different colored dice and each color corresponds to a nightmare, and I have assigned each nightmare a different genre. Each symbol on the die corresponds to a different space on the board, and I have assigned every space a different prompt. If I don't remove enough die from the board by reading all of the books that I put on last month's TBR, or if I just have unlucky rolls, I could possibly fill one of these tracks, which leads to various consequences for my dreamer and therefore hindrances towards my reading. I could become exhausted, I could become a nightmare, or my dreamer could even die. If this is your first time seeing one of my TBR game videos, I will link January's video here. That is going to go over a little bit more in depth of every nightmare, every space, all of the rules and the consequences for filling each of the tracks. But if you've been here before or just want to learn as you go, which you absolutely can, let's get into it. The first thing that we have to do is go over how I did last month to see if I read everything that I said I was going to, and to see if we need to keep any of the dice on the board going into this month's rolls. We did have to carry over a book from February. That was a Red Power, which is an anticipated horror. For that, I chose The Har by David Sodergren, which I did read this month, so we get to remove that one from the board. Our first roll for March was a Green Power, which is an anticipated romance. For that, I chose Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli, which I read as well. Roll 2 was a Yellow Shadow, which is any other genre and a backlist. For this, I chose The Measure by Nikki Erlich, which I did read. Roll 3 was another Yellow Shadow. For this, I chose The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, and I read that as well. Roll 4 was a Blue Power, an anticipated fantasy. For this, I chose Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawagachi, which I read as well, so we're removing that one. Roll 5 was a Red Shadow, which is a horror backlist. For this, I chose Below by Laurel Hightower, which I read as well, so we can remove that one. And the last roll for the February TBR was a Blue Shadow, which is a backlist fantasy. I chose Ruin and Rising by Lee Bardugo, which, guys, I finished as well. We are starting April's TBR with a nice clean board. What a fantastic way to start the month. A nice clean board. We love to see it. But now let's get into this month's rolls and prompts. As a little reminder, I'm going to pick 3 dice out of this bag. I'm going to choose 1 to roll, and we are going to pick a book that both corresponds with the colored nightmare and the prompt that the symbol corresponds to. I'm going to be choosing 6 dice for 6 rolls for 6 books, as always. April is also the spring semester of the Magical Readathon, my absolute favorite readathon. I look forward to it every single year, but that also comes with its own set of prompts for the courses that I'm taking for my character. So my main goal this month is going to be to try to fit as many books that I have kind of chosen for those prompts into this TBR. So let's get into these rolls and see if the dice are going to be nice to me this month. Draw 1. We have a red, and a green. Let's go for a green. Pull 1, we got a green, which is the Nightmare of Temptation, which is a romance. Let's see what we get. Ooh, a power. Let's go. That is an anticipated read. What a great way to start. I love starting with a power that is pretty much just kind of a mood read. It is something that I am anticipating reading. And we got a green, which is the Nightmare of Temptation, which is romance. So for this, I have chosen The River Has Roots by Amal El Malchour. Should have looked up how to pronounce this. This is a queer fantasy romance set in the land of fairy. This is pretty short. It is only like 133 pages, it looks like, and that is with the acknowledgements. So I try not to know too much about novellas going in because they are so short. I try to go in pretty blind, so I don't know a lot about this. I do know that it involves sisters, and one of them is supposed to be like getting married to a fairy, but she doesn't want to get married to that fairy, and that could set her and her sister's lives like down a very risky path. This unfortunately doesn't fit into any of my monthly magical readathon prompts. However, it does fill my year-long challenge that G over at Book Roast puts on. That is kind of part of the magical readathon. It's called the Year in Eldia. So every month you have a prompt, and that fills this. I had to choose a book with the word river in the title. So perfect. This has actually been nominated for quite a few awards. It is a 2025 release, which we love. And I've heard such good things about this author's writing. I've never actually read from them before, but I am very excited to try them out. Draw 2. We have a blue, and a yellow. Let's go for a yellow. Ooh, we got a yellow, which is the Nightmare of Imprisonment, which is basically any other genre other than fantasy, horror, and romance. We got an exhaust, which is our spinner wheel. Let's go. Roll 2 gave us an exhaust, which means we get to spin the spinner wheel, and we love spinner wheels here on this channel, so I'm so excited. Let's see what we're gonna get. We do try to fit the nightmare into this prompt, although it's not 100% necessary. Let's see what we're gonna get. Ooh, such an easy one. A library book. Love to see it. We love an easy spinner wheel prompt. Let's go. It could have been so much more specific, making it that much harder to try to fit in something from my magical readathon TBR in here, but we landed on library book. And we also had a yellow die, which is any other genre other than fantasy, horror, and romance. So I'm going to go for a sci-fi here. And I really hope that I like Amal L. Motor's writing, because I am putting This Is How You Lose the Time War on my TBR this month as well. This is also co-authored with Max Gladstone, another author I have never read from before. This has been on my TBR for years, and I'm so glad that the magical readathon is actually forcing me to finally pick it up. I will go over specifically what each book fits for each of my magical readathon prompts after we get through all of the roles, but this just happens to be the only book that I had on my TBR that fits one of those prompts, so I kind of had no choice, but I am not mad about it. This one is also a queer romance novella. In this, there are two rivals on opposite sides of this war, and they are trading correspondence, possible enemies to lovers, maybe. And I'm just assuming from the actual title and that it is a sci-fi that there is some kind of time travel element to it. It's giving adult queer sci-fi Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which I absolutely loved. So I'm here for it. I'm so excited. Draw 3. We have a little bit of everything. A blue, a green, and a red. Let's do a blue. Pull 3, we got a blue die, which is the Nightmare of the Depths. That is a fantasy. And we got a shadow, which is a backlist. Roll 3, we got a blue shadow, which is the Nightmare of the Depths. That is a fantasy, and the shadows is a backlist. So for this, I have gone with Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I finished the Shadow and Bone trilogy last month, and I am so ready to get into Six of Crows. I have heard nothing but absolutely delightful things. Like, this duology is so iconic, and I am so happy that I have finally finished the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so I can finally move on to this one. If you want to know my thoughts on the Shadow and Bone trilogy, be sure to stay tuned for my March wrap up. But this follows, I think it's like 2 years after the events of the last book, Ruin and Rising. Literally the only thing I know about this is what it tells me in the tagline. 6 dangerous outcasts, 1 impossible heist. So there is this ragtag team of these 6 outcasts that, for one reason or another, decide to get together to do a heist. A little sneak peek of my wrap up. I was not a huge fan of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. A lot of the characters I just could not get behind, but I really did like Leigh Bardugo's writing. I felt like it had a lot of potential, so I am very excited to see where she evolved in this duology. And, you know, not to set my expectations too high, but I have heard nothing but phenomenal things about this duology. I mean, it is so beloved. So I'm really hoping that I like this duology more than I liked the original trilogy, but it's time to find out. Draw 4. Let's see. We have a red, and a green. Haven't had a red yet, so let's do a red. Draw 4. We got a red, which is The Nightmare of Primeval Fear, which is a horror. Oh my gosh, another exhaust, another spinner wheel. Okay. Roll 4 was a red exhaust, which is a horror, and we get to spin the spinner wheel again. A little scary because if you've seen this TBR game before, you know that if we fill a track, I have consequences. So let's hope that this is the last spinner wheel, even though we love spinner wheels. We don't need a third one because then we have to spin the nightmare wheel prompt. So let's see what this spin is going to get us. Can we fit a horror in with this prompt? Let's see. Ooh, 2 or more POVs. This one might take me a second. I'll be back. Okay, we're getting a little scary. We have 2 out of 3 exhausts filled up, and you know, bad things happen if we get to 3. But this time it is a horror, and we got 2 or more POVs. After some research, I found that Carrie actually has multiple POVs. It is from Carrie's perspective, but it also has a couple of other perspectives. And there's also like interviews and articles. So I think this absolutely counts. And I actually did not know that this was like kind of multimedia before today. So that makes me even more excited because I love a multimedia book. This is a classic Stephen King novel following our girl Carrie. She is a misunderstood, bullied high school student, and I think her home life is, you know, just as bad as her school life. We have telekinetic powers, we have a troubled young girl, and we have a tale of revenge. I am so excited. I am such a huge fan of Stephen King, and I'm a little ashamed that I have not read this one yet. So I am so excited to finally be getting it onto a TBR and to finally be reading this iconic King. And I'm absolutely obsessed with this cover. It's gorgeous. I love her. Draw 5. We have a yellow, a green, and a blue. Let's do another blue. Draw 5 was another blue, which is a fantasy. Please do not get an exhaust. Okay, another backlist. We can do that. For roll 5, we got another backlist fantasy, another blue shadow. For this, I am going with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a Hunger Games prequel following President Snow during the 10th Hunger Games. I'm really intrigued to find out more about President Snow, especially like when he was younger and what kind of turned him into who we see him as in the Hunger Games trilogy. My plan is to read this one and then also shortly after get to Sunrise on the Reaping, and then I would love to reread the original trilogy because I haven't read it since like, I don't know, like 2012 probably, maybe even a little earlier than that. So I would love to reread that original trilogy, but first I need to read the ones that I haven't read yet. So we are doing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes for roll 5. And our last draw, draw 6. Let's see, we have a yellow, and a green. Let's do another yellow. And our last draw, a yellow, which is any other genre. Please do not be an exhaust. Oh my gosh, of course it is. Of course it is. Okay. An exhaust. The dice really said, hey, Whitley, we know that April is going to be a little bit challenging for you, so let's make it even more challenging. We got another exhaust, which means we have filled the track, which means we have to add another book to my TBR using a wheel that I have called the Nightmare Wheel. It has prompts on it that maybe lean more towards books that I would not gravitate towards. But first, let us spin for roll 6. Let's see We have a yellow, which is another other. So let's see what prompt we get for this one. Please be something easy. Okay. I feel like this might be cheating a little bit, but I'm gonna take it. Like, this is random. I got another library book. So, hey, I'm gonna take it. Okay, so since we got library book again, crazily, I can't fit any of the books from the Magical Readathon into this prompt, but what I can do is I can take an extra class, and I'm going to use one of the classes that I don't necessarily have to pass for my calling. I still want to try to submit as many pages as I can, you know, so I'm going to do this as an extra class, and the prompt here is to flip a coin, and if it's heads, I have to read a book under 400 pages, and if it's tails, I have to read a book over 400 pages. I have 2 books in mind that I really want to read for this that I would have to get from the library. The under 400 pages book is going to be They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. The over 400 books is going to be Shift by Hugh Howey. So I have a little keychain here. I don't have a coin, and I'm too lazy to get up and get one, honestly. So I'm going to flip this little keychain. We are going to call this side, it's a really cute keychain that my mom got me. This has my name on it and some books. And then we're going to call this heads. And then this one says, Just a Girl Who Loves Books. And we're going to call this tails. So I'm going to flip this and see which book we're going to be reading for this prompt. Okay. I'm not sure how best to try to flip this. Okay, you can do this. Heads. Okay, which one was that? Okay, heads is under 400 pages. So that means we are reading They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This is a good for her mystery thriller about an English professor who also just happens to be a serial killer. She finds a man around campus. I don't know how often, but she chooses a man who she thinks deserves to die, and she dotes out her own justice. She's been able to keep her little extracurricular activities under wraps, but as the body count on campus grows higher, you know, it garners attention from the law enforcement. So this woman is coming to kind of investigate all of these disappearances of these men. So in an attempt to try to keep the detective off of her trail, she decides to, you know, get close and schmooze the detective. There's also a possible second murderer on campus. We have these 2 college freshmen, and this girl's best friend gets SA'd at a party that she goes to, and she decides to turn her revenge fantasies into a reality. I absolutely love a feminine rage story. This sounds very juicy, very twisty. I'm so excited to read about these women wreaking absolute havoc on this campus. Well, we would usually be done by now, but because the dice were not in my favor this month, we have to add another book to the TBR using the Nightmare Prompt Wheel. So let's see what Nightmare Prompt I'm going to have to add a book for. Please be nice to me. I don't want to look. The book that's been on my TBR the longest. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm going to have to go to Goodreads. So I apparently started this Goodreads account on May 11th of 2020 because that is the farthest my TBR goes back. And I added so many books that day. A lot more nonfiction than I was expecting, honestly. We have things like Maybe You Should Speak to Someone, Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs, The Five, which is about the 5 women that Jack the Ripper murdered. And we have Make Your Bed. So there are so many nonfictions. So I was apparently in a very nonfiction mood when I started my Goodreads account, but I'm not really feeling any of those right now. So for fiction, we have The Invited, we have The Hate You Give, which I am ashamed to say I haven't read yet, The Library of Lost Things, Recursion. Okay. But the one I think I'm going to go with is The Invited by Jennifer McMahon. I'm really in a thriller mood right now, and that is just the one that is I'm gravitating towards. That's the one that's calling to me. So we're going to go with that one. Plus, it also fits a Magical Readathon prompt. Not one that I need for my calling, not one that I have to pass, but I can use it for extra credit. which is amazing. This follows a couple who is building their dream home, but come to find out the land that they're building their new house on has a very like dark and violent past, and the residents that used to live there, all of the women in this family for generations, just mysteriously kept ending up dead. And the wife really gets pulled down this rabbit hole of learning about this land's past and history, and come to find out that maybe the past women who have perished on this land aren't necessarily gone. I love a ghost story. I love a haunted house story, and I'm very excited to try out Jennifer McMahon. I actually have quite a few of her books on my TBR. This one probably wasn't at the top. I think probably Winter People is at the top, but if I like this one, then that is just going to push Winter People even further towards the top of my TBR. So I'm excited to see what I think of her writing. I am not mad at this Nightmare Wheel prompt choice. It could have been a lot worse. And now we get to go over all of my Magical Readathon prompts and my calling. I am starting a brand new character this year because my character, I have done all 4 years with the same character, which means I graduated last year. Come to find out, G gave us some extra stuff if you didn't want to retire your character, but the character that I had, I feel like would have graduated and moved on, so I started a brand new character. She is an elf from Carador. Her name is Ilaria, and she is studying to be a star whisperer. So what that means is I have to pass 5 classes this semester. For Art of Illusions, the class is the Alternate Illusions. The prompt for this is unusual formatting. I take this to mean like a multimedia book or something that's not written in like the usual narrative way. So for this, I am reading Carrie by Stephen King. I am also taking Astronomy. The class is Galactic Outskirts, and the prompt for that is from the top shelf. My shelves are organized alphabetically, so the B's are on the top shelf. So for this, I am choosing Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I also have to take Lore. The class is Ancient Speculative Lore, and the prompt for this is to read a dystopian or utopian. So for this, I am reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I'm also taking Psionics and Divination. The class is Reading Past and Future. The prompt for this is to read a book with the word time in the title. This is the only book that I had on my TBR with the word time in it was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. And lastly, I am taking Inscription. The class is Dating Intricacies. The prompt for this is read a book with a day of the week in the title. This was the only one that I was not able to fit into my roles TBR, but I am excited that I am adding The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman to the TBR for this. This follows, I believe, 4 older women in a retirement community who get together and talk about true crime. And when a murder actually happens at the retirement home, they put their detective caps on and decide that they've trained for this. They can solve this murder. It's been a while since I've read just a strictly mystery book. It's not something that I necessarily gravitate towards, but I'm pretty excited to try this one out. I've been really liking reading from older protagonists, and this sounds like, although, I mean, there's murders, so it is going to be serious. Like, I feel like with older protagonists, it's just going to be funny and a fun time as well. So I'm excited to get into this one. Was not necessarily expecting to start a new mystery series, but alas, here we are. Again, I think this is the only book that I had on my TBR that fit this prompt. So not that I had much of a choice, but I am not mad about it. I cannot believe that happened again. I filled a track just with my month's rolls. If you saw February's TBR, you saw that happened as well in February. Maybe I need to rethink the exhaust track. I mean, I guess it makes sense because every die does have that symbol, and there's only 3 squares on the board, whereas every other symbol kind of has its own track. Like each nightmare has its own shadows, and there's tons of power squares. I don't know. We love spinner wheels here, so I mean, I'm not complaining, but that does mean that we have 8 books on the TBR this month instead of our usual 6, but they are 8 books that I'm pretty much really excited about every single one of them. And I did manage to fit in almost all of my Magical Readathon TBR prompts to the books for the rolls, so I could not be happier about that. I do have 2,324 pages to read in April, which is pushing the limits just a little bit, but I mean, definitely doable. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for another round of LucidiTBR. Let me know down in the comments what you're most anticipating reading this month, or if you've read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are, and if we're unintentionally buddy reading anything. While you're down there, don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more from me in the future. I hope you are loving what you are reading lately. Stay safe out there, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye, friends.
You didn't think I'd be here waiting up all night, all night. I'm here to tell you something. There ain't another love that is gonna hold you down like mine.